This is Amplifyou, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplifyou families. Michelle Elise Abraham here, bringing you another amazing interview for our podcast today. So today I am doing a behind the mic interview with Jessica Coulthard. And I'm so excited to talk to Jessica because she's got a really cool podcast. And we definitely bonded over talking about podcasting. So we're going to do a lot of podcast talk today, get you jazzed up. Let me tell you a little bit more about Jessica, but let's first say hi. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I am awesome.
Okay, good. So glad you're here. So Jessica is a strategic interventionist who works with people to understand their driving needs, their core values, and motivation preferences so that she can facilitate rapid change. That sounds great. So she's also the founder of the Women Who Inspire Conference and the founder and host of the Ignited Entrepreneurs podcast. What's really cool is that she uses NLP techniques to dig deep into the unconscious of her clients. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be awesome. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is so great. One interesting thing, like so funny, because I actually didn't know that you do NLP or use NLP techniques because Evans and I, so for those of you listening that knows Evans is my co-founder of my podcastcoach.com, that him and I work together in all of our training and our education. And it's funny because we were just talking about, now, what if we used NLP as we were speaking on our podcast? How would that work? Because we have a client and a colleague who helps us with some of our clients as they're starting their podcast, looking at their intro and outro to using NLP to magnetize people. But we didn't think about it like on a regular basis. So do you use NLP in your podcast, Jessica?
I don't think I do it intentionally. I think just because I've done the training and I use it and I understand the language, I think I just naturally speak in a way that would facilitate people to tap into different areas of their unconscious, like asking powerful questions and just reframing things and kind of getting people to think differently now, I think is one of the things that just naturally happens for me now when I talk. So
yeah, I think that's really cool. Now, what would you consider like a powerful question? Can you give us an example of one?
Well, honestly, no, that's okay. I love this question actually. And I've been using it a lot recently with some of my clients because the brain likes to solve problems. So if you're ever struggling with like feeling stuck about something or unsure of which way to go with a decision, just ask it in a question form. Just say, if I could do this, what would I do? If this wasn't a problem, what could I do? How could I do this? And the brain will automatically go searching for answers. You've basically given it a command. If you just sit and say, oh, I can't do this, or why can't I do this? You're now actually, your brain will go searching for reasons why you can't, as opposed to how can I? Now it'll go searching for reasons why you can. So it's very important to phrase your questions to get the answers you actually want. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And like, not only that, but I bet if you're like asking yourself or asking your brain the questions rather than saying, I can't, that's going to make it more likely that you're going to be able to do what you want to do anyways, I would imagine, because your disposition is completely different.
Yeah. And so there's this area in our brain called the reticular activating system. And what it does is when you tell it what to go look for, it starts looking for it because our brain can only handle so much information. And so it dials in on what you've told it is important. So now if you want something else for it to go look for, bring that into your awareness, be intentional about it. And now your brain will go looking for those opportunities instead of the reasons why you can't. So
Oh, awesome. I took my NLP certification this year. I haven't done the test yet, but I took it with
Yep.
Adele, and I'm trying to integrate it into, like, there was a lot to learn.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm such a newbie. So like the integration period is taking me quite some time
Yeah.
to really like figure out like how to actually use it in the things that I do. So those are some great tips and great ways that we can like really like just ask ourselves, how can we, like, oh my gosh, we should just be living life that way anyway, shouldn't we?
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
just imagine what our life would look like if we instead looked for all the ways that we can do things instead of allowing ourselves to constantly be thinking of the ways that we can't or the reasons we can't, right? Whole new world would open up.
Absolutely. That reminds me of like the 4 minute mile, right? Like how
Hmm.
nobody thought it was possible until someone did it. And now lots of people have done it. So it's just that whole, yeah,
Yep.
thinking differently and acting on it, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Acting on it. See, that's the big thing. That's what a lot of people don't do is they get these ideas and they get these inspired ideas, but then they don't act because then they still go back into that same limiting belief, that pattern right? So it's learning to take that first step. Doesn't matter how big it is, just that single first step. And then you've set yourself on a whole new path.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I'm all about like, when people are thinking about doing a podcast, they get stuck at a couple of different roadblocks, right? And that at the just getting in motion and just the action of just doing, even if it's something little, like just, oh my gosh, over time that adds up and it makes a huge difference, that motion. Yeah, I find that really a powerful tool for sure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
take us back to Ignited Entrepreneurs podcast. So why Ignited Entrepreneurs? And what made you want to start a podcast?
Well, it's funny. I didn't actually want to start a podcast.
You were forced to. No.
Well, no, but I got that
Just kidding.
inspired, opportunity. So it was January of 2020. Absolute blessing. I didn't realize was coming, but I was starting to pivot my coaching business towards working with entrepreneurs specifically. And so I thought, well, okay, what can I provide for them? Where's the gap? What do they need that I can provide? Oh, okay, I know. I'll go ask them instead of trying to figure it out myself. So I put a post up onto Facebook in a bunch of different groups and just asked people. I said, if you consider yourself a successful entrepreneur, would you be willing to answer a few questions for me? And I had overwhelming response, of course, because people love to share their knowledge. And but I had one lady say to me, well, yeah, but what's this for? Is this for a podcast? And I stopped for about, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute maybe. And I went, you know what? Yeah, it is.
Yep.
And that was it. I leapt. I totally just went straight for it. And I thought, why not? Right? What else am I going to do with myself? And I just jumped right in. And what's really interesting is one of the ladies who responded yes to me, she really pushed it. Like I have to give her a lot of credit as well, because I said, okay, well just, give me a few minutes and I'll send you guys some information. And she was like, nope, what's your email address? I'm sending you my information now. Let's do this. I want to be your first guest. And that was it. That was the beginning. And to this day, she has the most listens.
Wow, awesome. That's smart because I always say people like it's interesting because so many people like shy away from the brand new podcast as like, oh, it's brand new, it doesn't have any listeners yet, and I don't want to be a guest. I'm like, guys, those are the ones that you want to be on because most people, believe it or not, they're so chronological that they will actually start at the beginning of a show and listen through from the beginning. So those episodes at the beginning of a show before it's launched or as it's launching, those first 10 episodes are going to be the most listened to episodes. So get on it. Like, who cares if they don't have any listeners now? They might have 100,000 listeners in 3 years from now. So,
yeah. And I really think that the title that you give your podcast helps a lot. So hers is titled The Money Goddess. So, of course, people are going to listen to that one, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Who doesn't want to learn about the money goddess or be one, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So a year in now, tell us a little bit about like, what's this year been like for you podcasting? What are the things that it's brought to your business, to your life?
Oh, wow. Like it's crazy. Like these are, again, this is that whole back to like, you just need to kind of be open to opportunities because you cannot see what's coming for you until you take that first step. Right. And so I had no idea what to expect. I just thought, well, let's just see. And if nothing else, I get to talk to amazing people. So, in some cases, well, in a lot of cases, if I'm really being honest, it's very selfish too. I go looking for people that can actually add value to my life, right?
Don't worry, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I host parenting shows, so I can learn all about parenting as well as this show. Yeah. So it's the only reason I do that show.
Exactly.
I'm a better mom. Yeah.
Exactly. I know, exactly. And that's the thing is when you have a platform, people will come. People want to talk about themselves. People want to share their knowledge. So, you can invite almost anybody and they'll be like, yeah, I'm there. Right. But yeah, so I started out, and one of my goals, of course, I like to have goals. That's what I'm all about, was to have my mentor on the show. And so my mentor, so yes, I've taken my NLP practitioner through an amazing lady, and I'm going to name drop because she's amazing. Her name is Lynn Robinson. Highly recommend her. But then I also joined like a community online, and I took a couple of extra courses on top of that and joined a community of a gentleman named Damon Cart. And so to me, he was like, I want this guy on my show. And so he agreed and he came on. And one of the things that he said was that when he started, he's a YouTuber. That's where I found him. And one of the things that he said to me was that when he first decided that he wanted to be a YouTuber and really gain his audience, that he decided to put out an episode every single day for 8 months. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. But I look at him now, like 4 years in or whatever he is, and he's got a huge audience. He's built a huge business around what he does, what he teaches. And I thought, that's what I need to do. And I mean, I didn't drop a podcast every day, but in 1 year, I did publish 85 episodes, which is more than one a week. I think it averages 6 or 7 a month. Right. So I just leaned in hard and really, and what a perfect year for that, right? With COVID, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot else going on. So I had the opportunity to just really lean in, and the people that I've met, the conversations that I've had the opportunity to have with people that I would never have met otherwise, because for me, having a podcast was a gift that I could give people. It was a reason for me to reach out and say, hey, I would love to promote and support you. I'd love to have you on my show. And that's a really great way to, just get people's attention and get them interested in what you're doing. And so I got to have conversations with people that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And now, coming out of it, I am now collaborating on courses with a couple of my guests. I've had them come into my groups and do guest appearances. We've started doing work together. I've also become an affiliate for most of my guests. I'm in the middle of a launch with one of them right now. I'm also entering into a launch with another one. Like, the opportunities that have come to me through this never would have, these are not ideas that I had before I started this podcast. So it's been amazing.
I want our audience to just get that golden nugget that you just dropped, because if I rewind what you just said a minute ago, is that, you and I have the same philosophy, and I think our audience knows that how I feel about this. Like, I use my podcast the same way as you, is to reach out to people who I want to get into their circle. I want to get to know them. I want to meet. And like, you and I could have gone out and had a coffee, but instead I said, why don't you come on my show, and we can have a better, like a longer conversation. It can be recorded. We find out all these commonalities, and then afterwards, chances are we'll probably be able to collaborate in joint venture with each other. And so using your podcast, and the key to this, and what I wanted the audience to pick up on, that is that you're leading with service first. You're offering something for somebody else to elevate them in their business and showcase them. So that's specifically why I do this kind of interview on this show too. Same reason, is that so I can elevate someone, invite them in and elevate them and really showcase what they're up to, because there are so many amazing people out there. But then that also helps us start the conversation, right? Of what else can we do together? Or this was a great conversation. Like, how can I support you? And how can we further support each other? It starts a relationship. And I think that's a really key piece that you just said. So I just wanted to make sure our audience caught that. And it was, that was a very good value bomb.
Thank you. Another really cool thing is that not only do I get to meet amazing people through my own resources, but they're now introducing me to their people. right? So other people that I would never have had the opportunity. Like my favorite thing is when I get a referral. Like you came to me as a referral,
Yeah,
right? So, I now I know of you, but I hadn't gotten to the point of really understanding who you were and what you did until I had two people actually say, you need to talk to Michelle. Michelle, you guys need to connect, right?
Yeah.
And that's another just amazing just benefit of doing what I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on your podcast, what's the goal of your podcast for these ignited entrepreneurs? What can you take them through? What kind of things do you talk about on the show?
Yeah, so I have 4 different areas that I like to talk about, and it's super unscripted. I don't just pepper people with questions. It's like this. It's just a conversation, right? But one of the things that I love, and the reason that I started the Women Who Inspire conference, who I need to mention, I have a co-founder. Her name is Autumn Rock. Amazing woman. She has actually now taken that and she's running with it. We've decided that that's going to be her thing now. It's amazing. You should still check her out. I've now decided to dedicate my time to my podcast. What was I going to say about that? Oh yeah. So the reason that I started that conference was because I love to share people's stories. I believe that stories is how we can inspire. Right? So when somebody can see, and I call it the transfer of belief. So when I can hear your story and I hear that you've struggled or overcome something or chose to jump at an opportunity, if I can see even a little tiny piece of myself in you, then I now have some belief in myself that I also can do that. If you can do that, I can do that. So the very first thing that I do is I always have people share what I call the birth story. So how they became who they are. What was that aha moment? What was that pivot point or that opportunity that hit them that made them decide that this was my path? So that's the first thing. And then, of course, because I want to provide true, real value for people, then I have a specific topic that we usually cover. So in some cases, it's for entrepreneurs. It could be about marketing or sales or branding or whatever, but also it can be I had a woman on in the very beginning who runs an amazing retreat center for parents of children who have attempted suicide, right? So that's a resource as well. It's an opportunity for me to introduce my audience to other resources that may not have known about otherwise. And then, of course, I promote everybody. I always like to make sure that I support and promote my guests. So I talk about their programs, what they're offering. And then the very last question I always ask is for one piece of advice that they would give to somebody who's ready to take their business to the next level. So I try to get a whole bunch of different little nuggets in there from all different angles. So
yeah, that's great. I love that. It sounds like a really good show. And it's something so great for the podcasters to know that they'll get some value and some nuggets out of the show, each show, because of the way you've structured it, which I think is really important. A lot of people just go in and have a conversation. And, it's interesting. I've interviewed a few people. I don't know if this has happened to you, but early in my podcasting time where I interviewed someone where they just ran away with a conversation that was totally not really relevant and all about them and selling their own books. And I was this is not really value-based here. So that's good that you can have the structure and lead the conversation more to make sure that your audience is getting some really great nuggets from your guests. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been on podcasts where people just pepper you with questions, but you don't get to answer. Right. That's, I really like to give my guests space to get their point out there and share their stories. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to I was listening to some shows that were the 7-day-a-week kind of shows, right? Where they have guest after guest after guest, but they don't get a chance to have their own 2 cents in there, right? Because you're really focused on your guests while you're on there. But I noticed over time, some of those shows, they have to start interrupting their guests and start interjecting their own things because they have no platform themselves. So do you do solo shows in your podcast too?
Yeah, actually. So I decided that there's a few things in my life that I want to be able to share. And so I think I call them mini casts, and they usually go maximum 8 or 9 minutes. And it's just something that's kind of on my mind that I think would add value. And I think I've done, I want to say 8 of them, including my anniversary edition of how my life changed after a year of podcasting kind of thing. Right. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love that. I think that's so important because I mean, that's something I would like to add into my podcast too this year, is some more solo shows and solo things. So because I like having that mix of both, right? It's great to have a guest, but I think like you, mine's probably gonna be a little bit shorter. I don't know if I can keep up a conversation with just myself and the screen for 30 minutes.
Oh, I can do it. I just don't.
Well, you really could do it, but like how interesting would that? Yeah. So it's so funny that one-sided conversation, right?
Yeah. Actually, another really fun thing that just happened was one of my guests, he thought it would be a really good idea if he interviewed me on my show. So we actually just did that. And I published that the other day for another sort of anniversary special. So that was super fun. And the best part was that it was his idea, right? He thought of it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Then your audience really gets to know you and listen to you. That's awesome. I've heard of some people publishing shows that like they've done on other people's podcasts, which is kind of neat because that's kind of like a commercial for the other podcasts on their show. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. So 2021, what's the and on the horizon for your show, your business? What have you got coming up this year?
Well, I think because I went pretty hard last year, I think I'm going to probably slow it down a little bit because now I do want to get back into my coaching again. I took a real step back from that because I just really felt like this is what I needed to do last year. And I spent so much time on it and really learned a lot. Oh my goodness, the learning curve was crazy, but like so amazing. So now I want to step back a little, probably publish a little bit less often. And I say that, but I haven't done that because I get so excited, right? When I have these amazing conversations. I mean, the other day I had one and I literally published it the same day because I was just like, this is so good. I have to get it out there. So I say that, but I don't know that I'll actually keep my promise on that one. But I think really it is just, I've got a couple of names in mind of people that I'd like to have on. So the goal would be by the end of 2021 to have created enough of a brand and enough of an audience that those people would say yes if I asked them. So I have a mentor that I started taking a course with. My very first course that I ever took, like way before I even took my coaching certification, and he just got me into the entrepreneurial world. And so I asked when I first launched, and of course I got you're not quite there yet. We need to, right? And I said to his assistant, I said, well, I'll be coming back in a year and I'll ask again. Yeah. So it's that challenge, right? It's like, at what point is he going to say yes to me? And so I'm not giving up on that goal yet. So
a good insider tip is watch for when he's launching something. Then he'll want to get on. Then he'll want to get on. Like I like that. You start seeing when B School starts launching, Marie Forleo's in like so many different podcasts, or like when an author is like publishing a book or something like that. That's a really great time to get them on the show because they're just about to launch something or have just launched something, and it's kind of like on their radar to get out there.
Oh, I like that. Thank you. I appreciate the tip.
You're welcome. That's awesome. Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask people again, like a second time. Like, I think that's great. Like, keep going back to that person until they say yes. I know, who's it? Seth Godin. He said no. I remember someone telling the story on their podcast, how they asked Seth Godin about 9 times to be on his podcast. And he finally said yes the 10th time they asked. So,
all right. So 10's the number.
Perseverance, right? Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, that's it. So you've just re-inspired me. I got to go back and ask him again now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep. So when you're working with your clients and going back into your coaching program, what kind of goal, like what kind of things are you helping people coach through? Is there any particular topic that you are really like, that's your focus?
Oh, my focus is really about, I love to see people reach for things. Like for me, it's all about goals and vision and chasing what lights them up, right? And it's funny because that was what I started with when I first wanted to get into coaching. For me, it was all about, because I was solving my own problem, right? I recognized that I had created this list of all these things, like New Year's resolutions that I wanted to achieve. And yet year after year after year, I wasn't doing it. And so I went out searching for how I can actually take action, how I can actually achieve things. And so when I first stepped into the coaching world, that was what I wanted, was goal setting and vision and action and motivation. And then I kind of steered away from it. And I just kind of went into a lot of other just basic life coaching type of things, like I can help everybody kind of attitude, right? And then now I'm really dialing it back in because it is what I truly love. It is the beginning of everything for people, right? If you don't know where you're going, you cannot get there. And so for me, it's really, I've relit up my Facebook groups. One's called 2021 Goal Diggers. Like it's all about just, and I'm bringing in guests and just like really lighting it up so that I can then bring a lot of value to the people that are there. And so all of my courses and programs that I'm offering right now are about like digging into your why and finding that deeper motivation and just really creating that those daily action steps. I have an accountability messenger group that I run, right? Yeah. And so every single day before 10 a.m., we're in there talking about what we're going to do that day. And then at the end of the day, we're talking about what we did, and then we reflect. And it's been amazing. The people in that group are loving it. So that's where I'm going with my coaching. That is going to be my focus, because it really, just when I see somebody kind of just go, oh, that's okay. That's it. That's why I want this. And now a whole new fire gets lit underneath them to go find and ways to accomplish that thing that they want so bad. That's what makes me happy. So.
Ooh, that's exciting. And then like that accountability piece, I think is so valuable because so like you can find information anywhere and learn things, but like having that accountability piece to actually see someone through a project, I think it's huge, especially for entrepreneurs. We all have that shiny object syndrome that get derailed, unfocused, whatever. It's good to bring them back on track to that original goal that they were so excited about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, people, if they start out with a goal and then they kind of start down that path and realize it's not for them, that's fine too. It's like being intentional and being aware of what's working, what's not working, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And then, even making that shift and going in a whole new direction, just not giving up, right? Not getting defeated and not letting those feelings of failure, which I don't believe in failure, but if those feelings that people have of like, well, I can't do this, and so I should just give up, because I'm sure we've all been there. But being there to just tell them that that's okay, right? Like pick another goal. Let's just keep going, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. So where can our audience find out more about how to work with you and where you are online?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Jessica Coulthard. I am on Facebook. I have a Just a Girl Like Me coaching page on Facebook. I have 2 groups, so Ignited Entrepreneurs as well as Goal Diggers. And my website is justagirllikeme.com.
I love that. And that just reminded me of something that you said earlier in the conversation, how your job in the podcast is to allow people to see something of themselves in what you're talking about, and that helps inspire them. And I just wanted to end on that note, because I think that was a really powerful thing that you said, that really being authentic and being real and sharing parts of you, although might be scary. And when you're a podcast host or being interviewed on a podcast, that's actually what's going to connect your audience to you and really move your podcast to grow and have more listeners. So I just wanted to bring that back up for our audience to just, grab that value bomb again that you gave, another one, and, just remind them that, that's part of the whole thing here, is sharing that part of you, so that inspires and people can recognize that piece of themselves in what you're saying and what you're doing too.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, lately I've allowed my guests to even hot seat coach me. Right? Like I am totally vulnerable. Like I joke and I say I roll over and show my soft underbelly, because, well, first of all, it totally benefits me. I'll take free coaching all day long. But it gives the audience a chance to just see what, this person can offer, and just, it opens up that vulnerability, like you were saying, on both sides of the conversation, right? So it's been a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely. That's so cool. Well, congratulations on a year into your podcast. It sounds like it's going so well, and it's such an integral part of your business and what you do now, and the relationships that you've clearly made from it have just, I'm sure, grown your business so much over the last year. So
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And if you can leave our podcast audience out there, some of them haven't started their podcast yet. Some of them have. But can you leave them with some advice of something that you've learned over this year that would be helpful for them to know?
Yeah. I think if it's something that you're podcasting or otherwise, if you have that feeling inside of you that there's something that you should be doing, figure out how to make it happen and then figure out the rest afterwards. Right. Like I said, I had no intention of starting a podcast. And here I am a year in, and it is the best business decision and personal decision that I think I've ever made, right? It's just been incredible. So if there's that little thing that's just been nibbling at you, stop holding back. You are holding back your genius and you're holding back your gift from the world. Mm-hmm. So you know what? Even if it doesn't work out the way you expect it to or hope it to, I think also releasing expectations and just letting it go where it needs to go, right? Just let it be, let it grow into whatever it's supposed to be. That's the best advice I can give people.
That's great advice, because we're not forcing it to be something that it's maybe not meant to be. Just let it grow organically and naturally, and have fun with it too. So many of our clients say it's their most favorite thing they ever do in their business. And I can relate, because it's my favorite thing too. And that's why I'm probably 3 months ahead in our recordings right now. Maybe I should start doing what you were doing and release more than once a week just to get caught up. So many cool people out there. Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being with us today and sharing so much value with our audience. And Amplifyou family out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we've learned so many really cool things to take away from this. And as Jessica's sign says in the background there, make today awesome. So go out there, share your genius with the world. Your story is meant to get out there, and it's meant to inspire, and you're meant to share it with the world. So go out there and be awesome. And thanks for joining us today.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.